Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Audio Edges. This is Alex here, and today we are going to be talking about preparing a vocal for mixing. Now, if you're just taking a raw vocal recording and getting straight to throwing on EQs and compressors and all your processing, I think you're skipping a major step that can make a huge difference in how the vocal ends up turning out at the end. This step is taking the vocal recording in its rawest form and doing a little bit of editing, a little bit of tidying up, a little bit of tightening the loose ends, and then you're able to have something that you're ready to mix. If you skip this step, no matter how well you mix your vocal, it could end up sounding sloppy. So you don't want this to happen to you, and let's dive into the video. If you find this video helpful, please feel free to leave us a like and a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we have lots more coming soon, and I'm happy to have you here. Okay, so we just hopped into the DAW. Remember, the DAW you're using doesn't matter. It's about the concepts because these concepts are transferable between DAWs. What you're seeing in front of you is Pro Tools, which is the DAW that I typically use. And I have 3 examples of different vocals here. Now, these are very raw recordings that could use a little bit of tidying up before we get to the mixing stage. So they're going to sound unfinished. They're not going to sound polished. And that's on purpose because almost the worse the example in this case, the better that this video is going to be to help you. So let's take a look at this first vocal. I'm calling it vocal 1. This is like an R&B vocal. Let's just have a listen and see what we're working with.
Dreamt up a distant place, a breeze it took me there. I saw a look on your face.
Okay, so just if you were just an average listener listening to that, you'd probably say like, hey, that's pretty good. And that's because the singer is a good singer. But there are things in the recording that we can still tighten up here. Like, let's take a look at this. There's a little click here. Do you hear that? That little click? So one thing I like to do as a very first starting point on a lot of the vocals is grab a mouth D-click. And this is RX9 mouth D-click. And this will just grab those little spots and remove some of those mouth clicks. And what will happen is, as you're mixing vocals, most often we brighten the vocals up. And when you brighten the vocals up and compress them, you're bringing out all of those mouth clicks and mouth sounds. So one first step that you can do is do a bit of mouth declicking. So the way I like to do this is select the audio region, then click on the preview button.
I saw a look on your face.
Okay, and then we're going to click the output clicks only and click the preview button. And then we're going to be able to hear only the clicks that it's removing. And this will let us make sure that we're not digging into too far into the meat of the vocal or digging out too many mouth noises that aren't necessarily clicks, but are more just regular vocal consonants and stuff. We don't want to go too deep with this. So we can just double check that by clicking output clicks only. Let's hear what we're removing. Nice. So did you hear those odd couple little clicks there? That's all that we want to get out of this vocal. And based on those settings, we can render this whole thing and watch what happens. We'll use that one little spot that was right here. We'll use this as an example. See what happens? Look how that got cleaned up. Isn't that mind-blowing? So before.
I saw a look on your face.
And after, okay? I'll render the whole clip again.
I saw a look on your...
Mind-blowing, right? So all those little spots all through this vocal are getting cleaned up, and that's with the mouth declick setting. Now, there's a few more things that I would do in this case, and that is just take a look at some of these breath edits and just tighten things up a little bit in between. So I'll do a really quick edit and show you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to just cut the beginning, have a clean start here.
Dreamt up a distant place, a breeze it took me there. I saw a look on your face.
Okay, there's a K sound here. We'll come back to that in a minute. I think there could be a little tidying up we can do in this spot.
Face.
Okay, so hear that little start of the breath. We don't really need that first kind of mouth sound there, so we can ease into this breath like this.
Yes.
See how much cleaner that is versus before? Okay. So all those little mouth sounds can actually just cleaning them up can make a big difference. Let's keep listening.
Yeah, whether or not I care, I saw a look.
Do you hear that little pop there again? So this can happen in vocals. We can just shorten the breaths a little bit, make them a little tighter.
Care, I saw a look on your face.
And then hear that noise in between. We just need to remove that. So just the next step is just getting that clean edit on your vocal. And the last thing we're gonna do here is there are a couple of words here where there's like a harsh consonant. And I know as a fact, once I throw a compressor on that and I'm doing multi-band compression and like pop vocal style mixing, it's going to really bring some of those consonants out. So I can just take care of that already. Might tweak them again later once the processing's on, but let me show you what I mean.
A breeze, it took me there. I saw a look on your face.
So that K there, this K is like, you can see it, right? This is the K of the look.
Look on your face.
And it doesn't sound horrible or anything, but I know once it's compressed and brightened and has all that breathiness on it, having this so clicky already is not going to help. So what I can do is just clean up the edit just a little bit like that and just fade into it.
Look on your face.
Do you hear the difference? So here's before, right?
Look on your face.
And here's after.
A look on your face.
Now, a lot of this can be preference. I hear vocals sometimes that there's mouth noises and like clicking consonants all over it. For me, it really, really bothers me when I hear that. It sounds less professional in my opinion. Like you can, and what really makes a vocal professional is when it's bright and has all that sheen to it, but doesn't have all these clicks and mouth noises everywhere. So by doing this, now you can brighten up that vocal, compress it, do all your processing, make it shine, and you're not going to have those little annoying, distracting clicks and mouth noises all over the vocal. Tighten it up, clean it up. And the last thing that I would do here is you can see that this vocal here was recorded in pretty evenly. There's not a lot of volume variances like you might see here in some of these other examples, and that's probably because it was recorded with a compressor on the way in, and that's totally cool. So I'm not too worried about clip gaining, but what I will consider is there may be some harsh frequencies that could ring out on occasion, and usually that'll stand out more when it comes to doing the actual mixing with EQ and compression. But already I hear a couple little frequencies that I could maybe treat just a little bit to make sure that the vocal mixing goes super smoothly for me.
Dreamt up a distant place, a breeze, it took me there. I saw a look on your face.
So here's an example. This beginning of the word face, listen.
Face.
Right there, right around 3K. That really bothers me just when it comes in and pierces. And I know when I compress and process this vocal, that's going to just pierce me in the ear right off the bat.
I saw a look on your face.
Right? So there it is. So all I'm going to do is render into the file. I'm using Audio Suite to pull up an EQ that I can render into the file. This is not like a plugin that sits as an ongoing insert. I just render this little spot and just treat it in the moment. Let's have a look.
I saw a look on your face.
Do you hear how much better that is? Listen before.
Saw a look on your face.
And after.
I saw a look on your face.
Now, one thing for good practice, I like to just crossfade those quick. It doesn't make a click or pop sound to begin with using subtle little processing and little spots like this, but I'll usually just add a little crossfade on it just to make sure it's all clean. There might be a few other spots in this vocal that have some resonances.
Into the air.
Like here on the, let's hear that. Right there. So here's without.
Into the air.
And here's with just cleaning that up a little bit.
Into the air.
So that's going to be just great. Now, there are plugins like Soothe 2 by Oak Sound that could really, really help with this in the mixing stage. If you don't have those plugins, you might have to do a little more of this type of work to prep. But the main thing is don't go too crazy with it. Don't dig into the vocal too much because you can totally destroy all the presence and you can make words sound totally different from the words next to them if you cut an entire frequency section out. So just be really surgical and subtle with it, and that's probably one of my best tricks, just to make sure the vocal is level and clean. So that's our example vocal number 1. Let's move on to vocal number 2 here. Okay, let's have a listen, just see what we're working with. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. Okay, this is a great example because this one needs some fixing up. So first thing I'm going to do is do the mouth declick again just to clean it up. This one wasn't as clicky as the other example, so we'll just make sure we're only grabbing a few clicks. Yo. Okay. So there's basically nothing in this to declick, and that's fine. So I'm just going to render it for safe measure and just clean up anything that maybe clicked and popped out of nowhere. So mouth clicks, all good. We don't have to worry about that. Now let's do a couple other things. You're as smooth as Tennessee. All right, did you hear that T there on Tennessee? It's Tennessee. That's called a plosive, and plosives don't just happen on P's and B's. They can also happen on T's and other consonants. So I'm gonna bring up our XD plosive, and guess what? If you're like, oh my god, I don't have this isotope stuff, don't worry. You can actually go download a free trial of these, and you can still use them to render little spots. All that will happen is after your like 30-day trial is up, once in a while it won't render, so you'll just have to undo and re-render it. And so like now I have the full package because I use it so frequently, and I couldn't be bothered with those little having to redo it. But honestly, if you're just getting started, go grab the free trial of this. You can use it ongoing for as long as you want, and as long as you're okay with re-rendering a couple spots. If the trial glitches, like, don't even sweat it. So go grab these right now completely for free, honestly. It's tennis. Okay. It's ten. Okay, let's just see what happened there. All I did was bring up this deplosive, and deplosive's amazing because it will clean up that plosive right away. Let's have a listen. It's Tennessee. Nice. But did you hear how it thinned out a little bit? So here's with the plosive. It's tennis. Okay, and let me now add what we did. So we lost just a little bit of meat. It's sounding a little bit radio-y. And all I'm going to do is back off the strength. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, I find around 3.8 on the strength of this plugin is a great spot for plosives. So I'm just going to grab the front of there, render. It's Tennessee. Great. We took care of the plosive, but we didn't dig too deep into the meat of the vocal. Whiskey, you're as sweet as strawberry wine. Okay, so no more plosives to really worry about. No more clicking to worry about. What I want to do next is just do a little bit of a tightening up of the edit here. Okay, we don't need this huge long breath. I might just use a little nice piece of it at the beginning like this. Yeah, that felt a little quick. That's much better. It's Tennessee. That was a little bit of a plosive there, but I'll worry about that later. Whiskey, I could clean this up if I wanted. I could do something like this. But that feels a little bit too unnatural. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. Okay, so right off the bat here, I'm going to do something called clip gaining, which is leveling out some of the levels. So as you can see here, the levels are pretty consistent, and that's in the size, the vertical size of these blobs, okay? So let's have a look at this blob here. Do you hear how it got really loud on you just out of nowhere? As strawberry wine. So what I'm going to do is in Pro Tools, you can just hold Shift Control and scroll, and then the highlighted area will go down in amplitude. As strawberry wine. Let me do it on wine. Strawberry wine. Okay, so that caused a little bit of a click, so I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently here. Let me just go like this and fade it. Strawberry wine. 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 Strawberry wine. Nice. Let's go back. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet. I'm just leveling out the levels. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. As strawberry wine. Okay, so why did I do that little bit of level editing? I'm going to be putting on a compressor after all. I shouldn't need to do this. It really depends. It really depends. Sometimes if you leave all those, if you leave the raw track really dynamic without any clip gaining or anything before compression, then the compressor really has to react hard. And sometimes it'll react at the wrong times that you don't really want it to need to dig into the vocal that much. So just taming it a little bit and pulling in some of those really, really loud notes before any processing can just help that compressor work smoothly and consistently and massage the vocal more than like freak out at random outbursts where you were too loud or too close to the mic. Okay, so let's do one more really quick example. The last thing I would do with this vocal is tune it with Melodyne, but let's do that here on this example instead. So we're already in the flow here. Let's grab some plugins and get this moving. We're going to start by just seeing if there are any clicks or weird mouth noises. We were born before the wind. Oh. So here's some clicks. See all the clicks in there? That's just mouth clickage. And let's just render this with the bass setting. There we go. You see our clicks get tidied up? The rest of the vocal seems pretty unaffected, which is great. You can always use the output clicks only trick to check. You hear that? Disgusting. Not needed. You know what I might even do? This one is a bit roomy sounding. So do you hear this? That room noise there? I'm going to grab spectral denoise. And you got to be careful with this because if you do too much, it can they can make the vocal sound really weird and artifacty. So I'm just going to learn that little piece that I highlighted by going like this. Okay, and it picked up some of that room noise. Now I can click on the rest of the track. Output any noise in between. So it looks like that noise only comes in between the lines, which is great. I tested it with the output noise only. And so now I'm just going to render this whole thing, clean up any noise in between. Okay, so you see how it just cleaned it up a little bit? But hear the difference, right? Here's before. Here's after. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of quick editing. We were born before the wind, also younger than the sun. See this little tongue noise? Let's clean it up. Ere the bonny boat was won, as we sailed into the mystic. There we go. Okay, so we had to do a little bit of denoising on this one. Nothing too crazy. We didn't change the tone of the vocal and make it all artifacty with the denoising. We did some mouth clipping. Now what we need to do here is just do a little bit of clip gaining because we have a lot of stuff out of control on this one. We were born before the wind, also younger than the sun. Ere the bonny boat was won, as we sailed. That whole line was loud. Ere the bonny boat was won, as we sailed in. Okay, so I just doing some leveling out of amplitude. As we sailed in. Okay, so here's a problem spot. Do you guys hear that resonance on this word sailed? Sailed. It's like this annoying resonant wail, and that is gonna just poke out even more later. That was the culprit. Let's just tame that a bit and see what happens. As we sailed into. Oh my god, so much better. I barely even have to clip gain this now. As we sailed into the mystic. Okay, fading all that. As we sailed into the mystic. And this was a little bit quiet. Sailed into the mystic. Okay, very last thing we're gonna do here is bring up Melodyne, okay? And if you've seen some of my other videos, you may know the trick to hit the transfer button and then just freeze the plugin and it'll transfer it all quickly without error, okay? Audio's transferred into the tuning software. Now we're gonna unfreeze and check it out. We're here, so we'll just redetect it. And lots of DAWs now, if you're on the latest updated versions, are going to have an ARA version of Melodyne where the DAW, like you don't have to transfer the audio at all. So if you have that all set, that's great. Feel free to move ahead in that way. And all we're going to do is tune this up really quick. I consider tuning a part of pre-mixing or prepping the vocal because we're not actually applying any actual processing like EQ or compression. This is just still working on the raw track. So let's do a little mini tune. We won't tune the whole thing, but just as an example. We were born. Okay. We were born before. We were born before the wind. Were born before the wind. Born before the wind. Also younger than. Also younger than the sun. So younger than the sun. There we go. Okay. And let's imagine we just tune the rest. But for time's sake, let's just now listen to this after all of our work. We were born before the wind. Were born before the wind. Also younger than the sun. And the bonnie boat was one. Okay, so things are much more smoother. We don't have those mouth clicks. Everything's edited better. It's more level. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do all your compression work in the clip, but if you have really standout loud notes, then you're gonna tuck those in. You're gonna tune at the end if it needs tuning. And then from there, your vocal is ready for mixing. So that is how to prep a raw vocal to be ready for mixing. Some of this may be overkill. Some of this is really, really going to be necessary on some of the vocals you get. So really gauge how much you need to dig into the vocal with this stuff. But this is a total crash course on how to do it all. And now any raw vocal you get, you should have a pretty good idea of how to get it from raw to ready to mix. All right, I know a lot of this might be overwhelming, so you don't need to worry. I've compiled a lot of tips into a guide. It's called Ultimate Mixing Tips and Hacks, and you're absolutely gonna love it because it has a lot of tips like this and what to do when for a lot of different situations. It's in an easy to use list. You can print it out and put it on your desk next to you while you work. I'm getting amazing feedback on it, and it's absolutely free. It's called the Ultimate Mixing Tips and Hacks Guide. The link is going to be in the top of the description, and you don't want to miss out on that. Go grab that now, and I will see you next time.